Hello, Angela Meiritz-Reid here, Stampin' Up demonstrator based in Christchurch, New Zealand. Today I'm sharing with you how I created this handmade card for this week's Global Design Project Challenge. It's a colour challenge this week and we are using Bermuda Bay, Blackberry Bliss and Soft Sea Foam. We'll get started straight away with the watercolouring so that it will have time to dry. I have already prepared some of these so you don't have to watch me watercolour them exactly the same way. So that's the one in Bermuda Bay, and I've done one in Blackberry Bliss, and I've done one set of the leaves. The first thing you want to do is with your watercolour paper, stamp these images, and you'll need to stamp them in stays on so that that won't bleed with the watercolouring. So give it a really good ink up and stamp that, and do the same with the floral image. It does pay to have your ink pad really well inked up, because this does tend to stick to the paper if it gets too dry. Right, so we're ready to go. I've got some scrap paper, I've got some paper towel, and I've got two water painters. And the reason I've done that is I'll add water with one and colour with the other. Do one of the Blackberry Bliss flowers. So this is a little time consuming, but if you like watercolouring, I always think it's lots of fun. So what I've done to start with is just working petal by petal. It's just adding a bit of water to that, just to let it absorb into the paper a little bit. And then I've got full strength ink on there, and I'm just putting it at the base here. And I'm not sure if you can see that, but it's just starting to bleed just a little bit, and I want it to do that because I want it to sort of do its own thing a little bit. So I'm just going to spread that a little bit with the water, and then just mix it, or blend it up towards the top a little bit, so it's almost clear at the top. And just blend that in a little bit. I do want a little bit more coming up the side, so I'm just going to add a little darker ink up here. Sometimes when it does bleed with the water, it dilutes a little bit much, so you have to add a wee bit more. And just blend that in a little bit. Then I'm going to turn around and do on the other side, just so it gives a little bit of time for that side to dry. I'm just going to go in here and add water to this petal. Actually, I might have said leaf before, but it's petal. Just adding that ink there, and you can see just bleeding up a little bit. And I'll come in, I might do this one in the back here so that it gives those other ones a little bit time to dry. So just pop water on there, and then I'm just going to pop the ink in those little gaps there, and then just up around here. It's just sort of imagining where you want your shadows to be on these petals. And then bringing that one in and just blending that up. And while it's got a tiny bit of colour, just popping it onto that top of that petal that's tipped over a little bit. And want to make it a little bit lighter in the middle actually, and I'll just put it a little bit darker down the bottom there. It's just trial and error really. It's just adding and taking, well, almost taking away sometimes too. So then I'm going to come around to this side and just bring in, pop some more water on that one, and then pop the darker colour here and add that here and take that around sort of, so I sort of do it in a gentle curve. And then add a little bit more in here because I really want that nice and dark in the centre. Then I might try this one up here behind. So it's just a matter of working around, and so hopefully the petals have a little bit of time to dry before you go back near them. Add a bit more, just keeping close to that edge. It just depends how dark you want your petals to be. Just going to see it is starting to drop into that other one, but I'll just sometimes even just a little bit of the paper just to take it off. And I'll have to add a little bit more colour still on there. I'll just add a wee bit more. So it's a reasonable size petal, and then just wanting to bleed into that bottom piece, which is a little bit wet. And then I'll come around this side, do this one here. It's just a matter of just working around all the petals. So I did exactly the same on the other flower with the Bermuda Bay. Did exactly the same way of colouring them. Right, I'll come back. See, that is bleeding a little bit, but that's okay. Hopefully nobody will notice too much. And then I'll bring this dark colour in, bring that up and around here. You could dry it in between times with your heat tool if you want to avoid that happening. It is a little time consuming if you're going to be watercolouring this way, but sometimes it's nice to just if you like watercolouring, if you find it relaxing, just pottering around with it, not being in a rush. I quite often listen to audiobooks, so I quite like just doing a bit of watercolouring, listening to a good book. Right, so I'll come back over this side, so I might tackle this one here. And I find by adding the water and then putting the colour on, it just helps it move it around a bit more organically, I suppose, without me sort of doing too much. Take on a bit of a life of its own. And back round to this side. And it's quite a big petal. And see, nearly added the wrong one there. Just pop some more clear, slightly tinged now, just on in here. Just put a little bit on that, and then tuck that colour in around there. And nearly getting there. Just do this. This is just a small one in here. There's two more to go, so that one. So I recommend not getting it too wet, but just enough so that it does sort of bleed a little bit and blend. A little bit more on that. And it does as it dries into the paper too. And the last one here. And that's it done. So you can see it's got those nice sort of white areas just to, I think it just gives it a little bit of a lift with that. So then lastly, I'll need to do the leaf. So I'll just set that to dry for a little bit. And just need to clean these off. And they clean off really easily. I just give them a squeeze until see it sort of coming out. Actually, I might just be able to get away with one with this one. So I'll just pop a little bit of water in there and then just start at the base because that's where I want the darker colour to be. And this isn't very dark anyway. You could use the ink from the refill. I'll just try and get it as dark as I can. I've gone a little bit over the edge, but it doesn't matter too much once it's die cut. And then just squeeze that and just take out the dirty water, and then just add a bit of water to the top, and that just blends that in. And hopefully you can see that there. Is that better? It gives you a bit of an idea how it's blended. Right, so next thing I'm going to do, I'll just leave those for a few moments to dry, and I'll do the background. So I've got the smaller piece of the basic white, and I've got my brush, blending brush, and the Blackberry Bliss, and bring in a bit of paper. So I just tend to dab it on there, and then I just dab it on here. I don't want that background too dark, but the center is going to be behind the flowers, so I'll start there softly and then just work my way out, and just sort of down the page a little bit and up. So just when you're happy with, I think that looks okay, so pretty quick and simple, not too much. And then what I've done is I've got the Stampin' Right marker and I've flicked onto that, and I've just done a really subtle amount of flicking, so just staying back a little bit and just flicking until you're happy with the coverage. So then I'm going to attach that to a piece of white, another piece of white cardstock that is about 1 millimeter around the edges bigger, just to give it a tiny little edge. Just adhere that with some glue. So there you can see, just really small edge, just enough to give a nice wee frame to that. And then I've got one of my packing sort of backing boards, so I'm just going to pop that on the back. But if you don't, I just stick some old card together. It's about 3 layers, otherwise just dimensionals. I'll just stick that on there. And then I've got a Blackberry Bliss card base, and I'm going to stick that onto there. So to work out which way you like that, which way suits you the best. I think that's pretty much of a muchness. Right, so that's good to go. So we'll just set that aside for a moment. So the next thing I want to do, I've already die cut those other two. No, the other 3, sorry. So I'll die cut these ones. Start on this side. Just line that up. And run that through. And I've just got the leaf to do that one. I've got the die here for that. Just run that one through. Super quick and easy. And then we're going to pop it all together. Now, what I did with this one, I'm not sure if you can see that very well, but I've popped a bit of the Winker Stella in the middle, just to give a little bit of a sparkle. Just a bit of a, actually I'll just, it does take a bit of, put a bit of colour on there, so I'll just clean that off before I pop it on here. Just give it a squeeze in a paint, so that just gives a wee bit more. Oops, too much now. I'll just wipe some of that off, got carried away. Yeah, so you can see that, definitely can see that now. Right, and now it's about popping the card together and then doing the sentiment. So I just want to pop some dimensionals on the back of these. Don't need many really, should be enough. And then just work out where you want that. I think about there. That's about where I've got my other one. And then the Bermuda Bay one, just pop a couple of dimensionals on the back of that. And tuck that, overlapping a little bit. And then lastly this one here. And I've turned that around and tuck that down so it's facing that way. So about there. And then the leaves, just pop. Don't need much on those either, just a tiny, just a half. And they're going to tuck one up there, tuck this one down here. Shows, doesn't it, each time you do, even though you think it's making exactly the same, slightly different. And then I'm going to make the sentiment. So I've got the happy birthday from that same set, and I've got my foam mat again. I've got a little bit of basic black cardstock. I'll just run the embossing buddy over that just so it doesn't get the powder sticking to it. Just excuse the big block. I've got them all in kits at the moment for class this week. This was about the last one I had left. And then the white emboss powder. And I'll just heat that, won't be a moment. And then I'm going to trim that down. I'm going to trim it as close as I possibly can because I don't want to cover up too much of those pretty flowers on the card. Hopefully get that nice and straight. And so that's just going to sit across there. Need to make my bow. So I've got some of the basic white twine. And so I'll just tie a bow with that. Make sure the loops are nice and even. Make them a little bit larger, I think. Give a good tug on it. Right, so I'm just going to pop a glue dot onto the flowers and then just pop. I didn't make that very even, but it's okay. I'll trim down the tails shortly. So that's going to sit about there. So I just need to pop some dimensionals on the back of here. And then hopefully get that nice and straight. there. That looks okay, about there. Just check that it is straight, so I'll just line that up there, and line that up, and that looks pretty good. And then lastly, I will scissors, just trim that off so that it's a bit more even. And then lastly, I'm going to add, I've got these gorgeous iridescent rhinestones, so I decided we need a little bit of sparkle on this, so I've popped a medium size one there. I think I've just used medium and the small ones, one there. I've got 5 of them on this one. Just dotted those around. And that's it, finished. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing this card being made, and that you'll give that a go and do a bit of watercolouring. It is something that you know, is worth persevering with, and you know, hopefully you enjoy it and do more of it. So thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you again next week. Bye for now.